Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the show that remains unnamed. Due to various bureaucratic issues, we've not been able to come upon a particular name that works for us yet. There's a lot of paperwork that we need to fill in. So I suggest for now, keep throwing in suggestions, keep throwing in comments. We'll continue to process those from deep within our bunker, about 400 feet below the Earth's surface. But for now, whilst the elves are busy dealing with that, let's talk about some watches. Something has taken your eye this week. Tom, tell us about it.
New Defy Sapphire from Zenith.
You're quite a classical guy, Tom.
Is it?
The Zenith Defy is not a classical watch.
Oh, but these are a real pair of Bobby Dazzlers. No, these are really striking pair of watches. So they're based on already existing models of Zeniths, the Defy range. And you've got two here. You've got the Defy 0G, which has that kind of gyroscopic capsule movement, and then you have a double tourbillon edition, which do exist previously. Am I right?
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
but now Zenith has put them into sapphire cases, so you can see everything that's going on, and they've also augmented them to give them this nice sort of celestial kind of spacey look. And the result is like a really striking aesthetic. The bridges are all kind of blue toned with white engraved stars of different sizes. The 0G in particular has the planet Mars as the small second dial. It has a meteorite and aventurine sort of handcrafted dial at 12 for the hours and minutes. And then, you've got this gyroscopic movement at 6 o'clock, which is also sort of augmented with this moon texture, and it's all very spacey and
it's a nice aventurine. It's a nice material. It's very glittery. I'd have my kitchen worktop made out of aventurine. I'm assuming it only comes in dial sizes because I think watches are the only time I've ever seen it used, but Omega uses it as well. Funnily enough, also to represent space, as Omega has a lot of interest with space. But the Defy collection, is this the first you've been aware of the Zenith Defy collection?
Well, the Defy, I think I've heard the one, we've done a video on it before with the chronograph that whizzes round at 1,000,000 miles per hour like Benny Hill.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I'll give you a little bit of context about the Defy range actually, because let's just say it's been an exercise of polishing the proverbial for quite some time.
Oh, that seems harsh.
Well, maybe I'll give you some context and you can understand why I'm saying that.
Go on.
So a lot of people, they understand the Defy to be a collection that came from the mid-noughties, and that's really the origin of the name in any particular popular sense. But the name Defy has been used by Zenith as early as the 60s and 70s, when, and this makes perfect sense, think about all the quartz watches coming in and how Switzerland was trying to fend that off with mechanical. They were defying the trend. When you take that in isolation and think, okay, it's the old school trying to fend off new technology and badging that as defiance, as opposed to just clinging on to an antiquated technology.
Yeah.
It's not quite so cool.
But it's almost, this gyro tourbillon and the double tourbillon, they're so audacious, it's almost gone beyond defiance, and it's actually, it's almost antagonistic.
Well, it feels a little bit like cars started to be seen on the streets and there were people riding around on horses being priggish about it.
Right, yeah. Or dusting off the penny farthing.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 wheels of the same size.
Yeah.
Not on my watch. So that was the Defy of that period. Of course, quartz watches and the whole quartz crisis caused a lot of problems for a lot of manufacturers, and Zenith wasn't immune to that. In fact, the El Primero and Zenith and everything like that were all done and dusted, and it was only due to the foresight of Charles Vermeau, who saved back the plans for the El Primero movement rather than throwing them in the bin, that Zenith, as a revitalized brand, could even continue with that movement. And the late 90s, early noughties was a period where luxury watchmaking was starting to come back in, as brands like Audemars Piguet released the Royal Oak Offshore, and Richard Mille came about, and Ullwerk was founded. This idea of avant-garde watchmaking beyond the classical.
Crazy guys.
Crazy stuff. And that's where the Defy came back.
Right.
Zenith had this guy on board called Thierry Nataf, who was their CEO for a period, and there's no better way to summarize the man than by saying the most famous picture there is of him is him holding an eagle.
Okay. What, with like a glove or like cradling it like a baby?
with the glove, and it's got the little hat on, you know.
Oh, sure.
And he's in a suit.
Fine.
So you get the kind of vibes, right?
Yeah.
And so the Defy that was his creation was the proverbial that needed polishing. It was this isn't necessarily my opinion, this is the opinion of the masses. It was an utter monstrosity.
Right.
4 parts submarine, 7 parts International Space Station, with a tiny dash of watch in there. What was interesting about it, though, was it was a platform for high-end watchmaking. They had some pretty complex movements in there, and I think that is what's been revived for the new generation of Defy.
Yeah.
So that chronograph you were talking about that whizzes around really, really quickly, that was a movement actually developed by Tag Heuer as a concept, but appropriated by Zenith for this early Defy watch.
Through industrial espionage, or did they acquire it legally?
Yeah, the Zenith guys like on a hilltop with binoculars looking through the windows of the Tag Heuer factory. Write that down.
Hello, my name is Mr. Tinez. That'll do.
They're both owned by the same group.
Oh, yeah. So, fair enough.
Shared technology.
With you.
So Zenith, in trying to reinvent themselves, actually brought back the Defy line, but thankfully not with the same vein as Thierry Nataf's era, but with the same ethos of demonstrating the best that mechanical watchmaking has to offer, which really threads its way back to that 1960s, 70s watch as well.
Yeah, there's more watch present in these ones.
Yeah, definitely. You can really see from them that it's less about the picture frame and more about the contents of the picture itself, if you like. Because you could purchase in the standard materials the entry-level Defy with a skeletonized dial, and at a glance it would look just as complicated and busy as these, completely ignoring the complexity these have. Not to mention the double tourbillon chronograph of these watches exists in its functionality in a non-tourbillon version. That one we were talking about that they pinched from Tag Heuer.
Right, yeah.
Where you basically have 2 movements connected with a clutch. Wind 1 and it powers the hands, the normal time telling at 36,000 beats per hour, as is the El Primero's famed standard. And then you have a second balance and a second mainspring and a second power reserve to power the chronograph, which runs at 360,000 beats per hour. So it's a 100th of a second measurement with a separate balance. The double tourbillon version does the same thing, but with tourbillons instead, which is like another step up. But to all intents and purposes, it kind of looks the same. Yeah,
on those ones, you've got 2 balance wheels that allow you to get that 100th of a second chronograph. What are you gaining from 2 tourbillons here? Are you is it just a greater increase in accuracy, or what's the deal there?
Well, it's slightly different between these 2 watches, because the tourbillon was invented as this thing that makes a pocket watch more accurate. If you imagine the balance wheel beating backwards and forwards, any position other than flat is going to be affected by gravity in one particular direction of its axis. But for a wristwatch, for the most part, when you sit at your desk, the balance wheel is flat, so the tourbillon doesn't really offer a whole lot of extra stuff. So having two here in this flat orientation, it's really a demonstration of technical performance.
Right. There's no so any kind of improvement that you would see would be meager and not really worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you so happen to keep your watch at an angle more often than not, but people move around, people have their arms in all sorts of different positions, and it sort of naturally evens itself out anyway.
Yeah.
There is one thing about it that I think is probably worth noting that is very technically impressive with the double tourbillon, is that in order to provide the chronograph with its 1/100th of a second accuracy, it, instead of making one rotation per minute, makes one rotation every 5 seconds. So if you're getting in there and looking at it really close up, you will see this thing spinning around like Billy-O. But I think just ultimately the problem is it just blends in with everything else at anything more than an arm's length. The gyro tourbillon, on the other hand, certainly takes that process a step further, on the basis that if a watch is lying flat, the gyro tourbillon moves around in all directions, so it compensates for any position you could put it in. But even so, your arm and your movement generally act like a gyro tourbillon for a normal balance anyway.
Yeah.
So really, once again, it's a demonstration of technical prowess, and I think that's how these should be celebrated. And I think that's how these versions do it best, because you really get a sense of what's going on as opposed to it just being a blur of parts.
Yeah.
But what's really funny to me, and maybe a little bit of a shame, is that they've gone to all of this effort to reinvent the Defy line, and it sort of seems to have slipped everyone by. So these two watches, like you say, I think one came out in 2018 and one came out in 2019, with the Defy collection a few years before that. There is a fusee and chain tourbillon version of those watches that came out that is completely under the radar. And so I'm guessing all that investment in developing these watches has been revisited with new special boutique versions in more shinier, eye-catching materials to try and get people to pay attention to them.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, they're certainly eye-catching. The sapphire allows you to see through into both these pieces.
From what I think Zenith are trying to achieve with this watch, the addition of the colour and the case materials and the aventurine and things like that serve to tell the story better, because they're busy. They're definitely busy watches, but when they're all in the greys that you expect of a typical watch and how they were previously released, it almost loses some of the depth that's going on there.
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? With some of the previous Defies, you've got those carbon black ones and stuff. All those details kind of get lost. It's the same with we've been looking at a couple of Richard Milles lately, and they're just so hard to read. There's just so much going on. It almost sort of cancels itself out. Your eye can't rest anywhere. But I think these definitely solve that problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, because what are the prices of these two?
Right, yeah. So let's talk about. So they're 10 pieces each.
Yeah.
The 0G is $159,700, and the double tourbillon is a bit more, $180,300.
Oh, that's steep. That's steep, Tom. I'm not buying it just yet. I feel like there's a sweetener that could push me over the edge.
Right, yeah, well, okay, what about this then? Included with this watch, a trip to outer space, sort of.
Is there really?
No.
Oh.
But included in the price tag is a gravity-defying parabolic flight experience.
Oh, the vomit comet. Okay.
I've not heard that.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Where they take you up in a 747 and they fly up and then they fly down, and they fly up and they fly down.
Yeah, well, I think so. I looked into it, and I think it's like this special Airbus. It's the A300G, and if you're one of the lucky recipients of this watch, you can go to the Nova Space facility, which is part of the French National Space Centre in Bordeaux, in France. And you can go up in this Airbus A300 and try not to vomit. Aside
from the fact that I'm a little bit concerned that their space program is set in the same place that they make a lot of wine, that's a pretty cool thing. I think I would have preferred to go to space, but that's £1 million, isn't it, to go to space?
How do these things actually work? My impression of it is that it takes you up to a great height and then it just sort of nosedives down, and that gives you the feeling of weightlessness that you would get in zero gravity. Is that the gist?
Yeah. So a lot of people don't really understand the difference between zero gravity and microgravity. Microgravity is what's experienced in the low Earth orbit that the International Space Station and stuff like that are on. You know that feeling when you go over a humpback bridge?
Yeah.
Where your car goes down at the same speed that you go down. So effectively, for a moment, your stomach, your insides feel weightless.
Right.
So on the International Space Station, if the International Space Station stopped its orbit,
yeah,
everyone on board would be pulled down towards Earth. They would have gravity.
Right.
And so would the International Space Station. The International Space Station would fall to Earth, burn up, and everyone would die.
Oh.
So the way they avoid that is by going forwards. But they don't go so fast forwards that they leave Earth's gravity. They fall over the edge of the Earth. They're constantly falling around the edge of the Earth. They're going forwards just enough so that as they fall towards Earth, they keep missing.
Right. So the space station isn't far enough away from Earth to experience zero gravity. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
If it were to park up, it would pull towards, and in fact, it still gets affected by gravity. It still gets pulled towards Earth, and they have to do a little, like a height adjustment burn to push themselves back up every now and then.
Oh, right.
But it is like running at the horizon and falling over the edge past it, and you're constantly falling past Earth.
Oh, just like my anxiety dreams.
So the feeling is exactly that of a humpback bridge permanently.
Right.
So the vomit comet is the same deal, but for a shorter period of time.
Right.
They fly upwards nice and high, and then they fly back towards Earth, and they fly towards Earth at the same rate that gravity would pull you down. So you are free falling as if you had jumped out of the aeroplane, but the aeroplane has come down with you.
Yeah, sure.
So that's the way to think about it. It's relative. And it's the same for the International Space Station. You're free falling, but the space station is coming with you. And so relatively speaking, it feels like you are weightless compared to the aircraft or the station.
Yeah. So now with all that said, I wonder if you are so enamored by the watch, you want to buy it, but you're not so thrilled about the thought of going up in the vomit comet.
Oh,
how does that
sorry,
work?
Sir. Your credit card's been declined. No watch for you. You have to collect it from the plane.
Yeah, right.
It's right at the back.
It's mandatory.
You're not going to take off when I go in there and get it, are you? No. Shut the door.
It's definitely worth asking, though, isn't it? Do I have to go on it? I really just want the watch.
If you think about the average person who can perhaps afford a product like this, I would say, they may, for the most part, be past their prime. And perhaps the idea of suspending all of their organs in free fall might not be great for their circulatory system.
Sure.
And I feel like Zenith could end up with a few lawsuits on their hands from the estates of the previous owners of their watches.
I like it. I mean, maybe it's something, maybe it's Zenith trying to tell the watch buying public, if you want a dive watch, you got to dive. This isn't just
go and get it.
It's not just for filthy casuals. If you want a space watch, you better get up there, son.
Is it like when you did in school when you did your like swimming lessons and they put that rubber brick at the bottom of the swimming pool, right, but like it's the watch and you have to swim down and go and get it?
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, good for 300 meters. Yeah, well, let's see if you're good for 300 meters.
So a pilot's watch as well. The way you buy it, you order it online, and you're sat, and unbeknownst to you, you're on your way to a holiday destination. Lovely, beautiful. You're on your way for a nice, what you think is going to be 2 weeks of sun, sea, and sand. But all of a sudden, there's a call over the radio. The pilot's fainted. We need someone to come and fly the plane and land the plane. And it's only upon successfully landing the plane that you are awarded your pilot's watch.
Yeah, if you want to wear a pilot's watch, you better be able to fly the plane if the pilot passes out.
It's like an accreditation. You don't get the watch unless you have the skill.
What other ones could they do? Buy a G-Shock and do a bungee jump? Is that the vibe?
Yeah. Driver's watch. Yeah, you've got to be able to drive from one side of London to the other without breaking the speed limit in less than 2 hours.
Or what about buy an Omega Seamaster, a 007 edition, and you get taken to a casino where you have to have a fight?
With Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
He's getting on a bit now. I think I stand a chance.
Yeah. Oh, what about buy an Invicta and you have to go on an over 50s booze cruise?
I don't think you're going to make many friends with that. But as well, I think it's going to be tied to the price. If you want a Tudor dive watch, then it's down to the bottom of your local swimming pool with you. If you get that Mega Omega Planet Ocean ridiculous dive watch that can go to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, then you have to survive a dinner date with James Cameron where he tells you the plot of all of the future Avatar films. And if you can stand that, you get the watch.
This is already starting to sound like punishments for buying these watches.
Maybe we should just stick to just the typical cash exchange. Maybe that's better.
Yeah,
It's certainly a better business model.
Well, good on Zenith for trying it anyway.
Yeah, it's a nice idea. But I'll tell you who's going to be really upset about all of this. Who's really drawn the short straw on this? A man called Felix Baumgartner. You heard of him?
The guy who plays Kevin in The Office.
No relation.
Right.
This guy that jumped from a hot air balloon from space.
Yes. Yeah.
Essentially rode a weather balloon all the way up into space. Thought, I don't like space anymore. I'm out of here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
bailed out.
Yeah.
Fell to Earth. He was sponsored by Zenith, and he wore a Stratos, I believe.
Right.
And the whole mission was called the Stratos something. Makes sense. Stratosphere, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
He had to. It's the other way around. He had to jump from space to get the watch. It wasn't a perk. He had to, throw himself off of the edge of the atmosphere, plunge towards Earth in order to get his watch. And now they're just giving away the experience for free with it.
Hello, I'm doing a sponsored hot air balloon dive from space. Red Bull have promised me a case of Red Bulls if I do it, and Zenith have promised me a watch. All right, I'll give you 50p a meter if you survive.
So, I mean, these are good watches.
Yeah, brilliant.
Would you buy one? What caught your attention? Because you've not mentioned these Defy watches before, and now all of a sudden you're well into them.
Listen, my criteria for liking a watch is it doesn't need to be much more than that looks cool.
It's got blue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, as you know, I'm a simple man. But whether you're talking about, is it something I would wear? I don't know if I'd have the confidence to wear something like that. It's crazy. But
do you mean on the basis that you could catch it on a door frame and smash your £190,000 watch into a million pieces?
Even if I was immune to those kind of mishaps, which I'm certainly not, I don't think I'm charismatic to carry off a watch like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. There's a certain type of person for whom wearing things that are outlandish and trendy and interesting and characterful really, it's like elevating them to a new level of persona.
Yeah.
For me, I look like and feel like a kid wearing their parents' shoes, standing there with the shirt sleeves hanging too long and the feet just disappearing into this pair of shoes.
Yeah.
It just feels like I'm pretending to be something I'm not.
I think of most watches like Hawaiian shirts. I think, wow, they look really, really cool. And one day I'd like to think I'd be cool enough to wear one myself. But until then, I'll just appreciate all the other people that wear them.
Yeah. Just slowly blending into the background. And a sparkly, big, crystalline Zenith with a whopping great big gyro tourbillon in it is definitely not a way to blend in.
No. But one day.
One day.
Yeah, well done, Zenith. A lovely, fine pair of watches for 20 lucky people. And the included zero gravity experience takes place in February, so hopefully Zenith will get some press there and we'll get to see all those lucky owners go up in the vomit comet.
That's pretty optimistic, isn't it? They're saying we've got to get them all sold by February.
Oh, they'll do it. Look at them.
They're pretty shiny, and I do like shiny.
Yeah, everyone likes a shiny new watch.
Fair play. I think they've recovered the Defy line, and I'm hoping these pieces give them a bit more much-needed visibility.
Hopefully we'll get our hands on one day, if only temporarily, to review ourselves. Because it looks like there's just so much to look at, and the images Zenith have provided don't really do it justice. I want to see more.
Zenith, if you're listening, sell just some of them. Keep one back, so we can do a video. We'll come to you. You do have a question for me this week.
Yes.
Tom, why don't you read it out for me?
Okay, so Pryan39 asks, didn't Arnold and Son come up with the Tourbillon but die before he could complete it? His friend Breguet completed it instead and gave Arnold and Son the credit because it wasn't Breguet's idea to begin with.
So that's a really good question, Brian. Of course, the invention of the tourbillon is attributed to Breguet because Breguet invented the tourbillon. But as we all know, ideas don't come from nothing. And Arnold and Breguet were both really good friends, both excellent watchmakers from different nations. They were such good friends that they actually traded sons as apprentices, and both were working on the idea of correcting positional error, where a watch's balance is positioned so it's affected by gravity, that causes these errors, and they were both looking to do something with that to nullify those effects. It seems that Arnold was perhaps working on something like that. To what degree isn't necessarily known, but what is known is that Breguet, after Arnold died, before he could pursue his own version of the tourbillon, or whatever it may have been, Breguet gifted Arnold's son with a pocket watch by Arnold with a tourbillon by Breguet in it. Almost by way of acknowledging the mutual respect that they had and the contribution together to watchmaking, and perhaps specifically the tourbillon itself. So it's very difficult to place the credit solely on Arnold because Breguet did say, look at these drawings, it's the tourbillon, I made it and it works. But Arnold was definitely a massive influence, if not a key contributor to the development of that device.
Ah, right. Sounds like a Flaming Mo situation. I hope that answered your question, Pryan. Yeah, guys, any more questions, let us know in the comments below, and we'll get Andrew to answer them for you next time.
Indeedy. But until then, we want you to like the video, we want you to comment, and most importantly, we want you to subscribe, because subscribing is our life force, and without it, we perish.
Oh, here he goes again.
Please subscribe.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.